Hey Monarchs,
Hey Monarchs.
Hey, Monarchs.
Hey, Monarchs.
Hey Monarchs.
we're on a mission to hit 500 members before the first game.
And we need your help to get there.
The first 20 members to refer a new member receive a signed football by your favorite ODU Monarch.
New members get their first month of membership free when you sign up before August 30th.
Your support builds the legacy and fuels the next generation of Monarchs. Go Monarchs.
The following presentation is brought to you by the Pride of ODU, the official NIL collective of Old Dominion Athletics. Be a monarchist. Join the Pride.
Monarch Nation, we are here with Old Dominion head football coach Ricky Rahne. How are you doing today, Coach?
Doing well, man. Thanks for coming in.
All right, so I want to start this off with, we've talked a lot in the past about your vacations.
Yeah.
I know the baseball stuff's done. So what was this year's big trip?
This trip was to finish me having slept in all 50 states. So we took an RV. Well, we flew out to Bozeman, Montana, and then got an RV. My wife, Jen, and my two boys, Ryder and Jake. And we started going. I mean, we ended up putting 1,600 miles on the RV, which is a little bit more than you're supposed to. So that was a little extra charge there at the end. But it was awesome. I mean, we went up to Glacier National Park, which was a really, really cool experience. I'd never been up there, and slept right near there. So that knocked out Montana for me. The next day, we drove mainly at night, and it wasn't exactly roughing it. We actually brought the PlayStation 5 and a TV for the boys and set it up so they could play. They mainly played the new college football game because, we were driving at night. So it's not what were they going to see? They weren't going to see anything. So that was awesome. And so they really enjoyed it. And the next day we went into Idaho and went to Silverwood, which was like an amusement park. And it's really cool. It's got two awesome old wooden coasters that were some of the best wooden coasters I've ridden. They were really cool. Then they had some of those new ones that, are awesome as well. And then we did some other things. And then they also have a water park attached to it. And so we did some of that. And they had some awesome water park rides. And so that was a really fun day. Drove from there down to Riggins, Idaho, again at night. And then we did whitewater rafting on the Salmon River. So that was cool. Then from there, we went to Crater of the Moon, which is also in Idaho. From there, we went to, we were going to Yellowstone. And my wife was like, "What's that?" And I said, "It's the Grand Tetons." And she's like, "Well, I wonder how far away those are." And so we looked, and it added about 20 minutes to our drive. So we just veered off. So we went to Grand Teton National Park for probably about 3 hours. Beautiful place. Wow. I mean, that place is awesome. Started raining. So we went into Yellowstone, and another great idea by my wife, we went to Old Faithful right when it was raining. So like everyone's driving out. As soon as we pull in, a bison like rolls across our RV. I almost hit it, slam on the brakes. Wife gets out and takes the picture and everything. And then we go to Old Faithful. It had just erupted. So we walked around, went to one called Solitary, up the hill, went all over the place. And then we ended up behind Old Faithful when it finally erupted. So it was just the four of us. Everyone else is far off. We're right there just as close as they are. We're just in behind. And then the really cool part was it started raining. Everyone left again. We keep going, and we go to the Grand Geyser. And the Grand Geyser is the world's largest predictable geyser. It goes off every 7.5 hours. And we just happened to walk on it as it erupted. And it went for like 20 minutes. That was awesome. Saw some more animals. And the next day we did a tour where we saw herds of bison, pronghorn, antelope, bighorn sheep. From like a mile away, we saw grizzly, which was still pretty cool because there's only 150 of them in the park. So that was kind of cool. Ton of elk. and yeah, it was just awesome. It was a really cool experience. And then came home. So it was a great trip. So now I've slept in all 50 states. Yeah, pretty good summer. So it was a cool deal. I really, we stopped and we went for Monarch fans. We went to the Kibbe Dome, so the place of the first FBS Monarch victory. Went to that. I'm not going to say we broke in, but I'm not going to say we didn't. So Idaho, if you're watching, we didn't break anything, but we did let ourselves in.
The door's unlocked. It's not breaking in.
I didn't think so. It was a cool deal, so that was awesome. And then we just stopped by and ate at like just little random towns in Idaho and Montana along the way, and it was awesome. So great trip. Very it's like just planned enough to where it was we knew what we were doing, but like not planned enough to where it was a problem. So it was a really cool deal. I excited. I'm glad we got to do. I'm glad I did it. Boys liked it. My wife really liked it, and it was a good trip.
Now that you've been all 50 states, is there a certain state that kind of calls to you where you're like, I think I could be here for a while, or region?
I'm not saying that. I mean, I love Virginia. I mean, I love the fact of how diverse it is and everything like that. You got the mountain, you got the beach, you got, major metropolitan areas. You have places where it's agriculture and all that sort of stuff. But I would say just, the places we were just at speak to me probably a little bit more than my wife. I like the wide open spaces of Montana and Idaho. And yeah, they were pretty, I loved Alaska. It was pretty cool. My wife needs more neighbors. I probably need considerably less than she does, but that's probably the best, I would say. I mean, I think it's part of. It looks a little bit like home. Like it does look a lot like home. So, people don't understand if you've ever been to Germany, where my ancestors are from is, from Bavaria and even farther south, like down into where Germany, France, and Italy all kind of come together, right? Down in there, and Colorado, Montana, all that sort of stuff. It looks a lot like like the Alps and Switzerland. Like it looks a lot like that. And I think, like my ancestors went like straight from New York to Colorado, like did not, stop and they went straight there. So I think the similar thing is still in my blood, where it kind of speaks to me a little bit. So.
All right. You had another trip this week for Football Media Days.
Mm-hmm.
What is your general kind of thoughts on going to these events and kind of what you take from going to them?
Well, I think that Commissioner Gill and Travis and Sam and those guys, they do a great job on setting all that up. This year was a little bit different because the timing of everything was a little weird, where the Big Ten Media Day was on the same day, the ACC, the AAC, and then I believe the Mountain West was like at the end of it. And so what happened was we just didn't have quite the same representation as we had maybe in the past. And I think a little bit of that is that our conference does such a great job of putting everything out there that it's very easy to consume by not being there, And so I thought it was a great event. I thought it's a great experience for our players. We had Chris Trinidad and Zach Barlow with us, and they had a really good experience. Was able to go out to dinner the night before at a really good restaurant, and that was fun. And they're all dressed up in their suits and everything, which is awesome. And so they got a very first class experience. Shout out to the Mitchum family for helping us get down there and everything in a very first class way. And so I think that all that's great. It's going to be interesting to see where these go. I think ours is still in a good way where it's 2 days for 14 teams. But if you look at some of these other things, they're going 4 days. And I don't think I talked to some of my buddies at these other conferences. They're not quite getting the same, juice out of the squeeze that they used to get out of it. And I think it's partially because of, individuals like yourself do such a great job of pumping out this information all year round that people aren't hungering for it as much because there literally is no break, right? There used to be a nice 3-month break there after spring ball where there was little to no information. And so Media Day served as a great way to be able to kind of get people jazzed back up for the season. And so it was a great experience. It's run. I cannot emphasize enough how well it's run. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes in the future.
All right. So you do the podium part, and then you take a break. I think you guys did lunch after that, and then you had to go do interviews with different media from the Sun Belt, right?
Yeah, I actually did most of the meeting in the morning. So we
Okay.
start at like 8:30. So I think we got down there for breakfast at 8, and then we started at 8:30. I mean, I think I had my first interview at 8:30, and I mean, before the podium, I bet I had 8 interviews. You know, I bet the guys had probably 5. So yeah, I mean, and then afterward, you know, you have another 3 to 4.
Right.
And then, you know, there's the TV aspect of it too, the ESPN Plus in the studio aspect of it too. So yeah, it's a full day now.
So I guess where I was going with this, I always try to be original with what I ask you. I don't want to sound like everyone else.
Yeah.
But given it's football and there's only so many topics.
Yeah.
And then you have people that don't really know you that well.
Oh yeah.
How repetitive did these questions get?
So
when you're doing 13 interviews.
So one of our players a couple years ago said it perfectly. He said, "You don't answer 1,000 questions. You answer 4 questions 250 times." So that's a really good way to put it. You know, very honestly, it's why, you know, people ask me, why didn't Jason go? Jason didn't go because he went the year before, and I knew every single question was going to be, "Jason, how you feeling?" Right? And we all know he's been doing great and running around great and feeling probably better than he has in 20 months, even before the injury, probably feeling better than even that. And so, like, I didn't want to subject him to that. You know what I mean? And it was just one of those things. So it's like, yeah, that's the hard part. And then, like, yeah, you're right. I mean, like, most of them now can say my name. Most of them, not all of them. One of them called me, what did he call me? Oh yeah, he called me Ronnie Rainey, which was like, that was a new one. Like, that one was like, it caught me off guard. Pretty, I guaranteed the first answer to his question was just like absurd. Like, I don't even know what I said because I was like trying to like think in my head, like, how did he begin to call me that? Because like he just had asked me my name, and so that was an interesting one. But yeah, you know, I will say this in general with the Sun Belt. We all just want to see each other be successful except against each other. Like, I mean, like it even like my interviews with JMU are pretty cordial, right? You know what I mean? I mean, they don't want to see us like fail because they want to, like I got a bunch like, "Hey man, hope you go 11-1 next year," you know? And so everyone's pretty rooting together for the Sun Belt, which is I think a much different animal than a lot of these other conferences, where there are some of these other conferences that I've been in. It's hard whether fans get happier when somebody loses or when their team wins. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not true in the Sun Belt, at least not the way I feel about it, or at least the feeling I get from everybody.
All right, awesome. So let's talk about football. Season end, the guys that stuck around, we've made it a good point to celebrate those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But what was your message to them before they started their training process in the spring? What did you want out of them?
The guys who stuck around or the whole team?
Well, I guess the guys that stuck around.
Okay.
I mean, because who cares what the guys that left?
Yeah. No, yeah. The guys who stuck around, I mean, honestly, not much different than the whole team. I mean, I want them to get better. That's why they stayed, right? They stayed. The main reason they stayed was because they felt like they're getting developed, and they feel like they can get developed here under the coaching staff that we have and under the strength staff that we have, right? And so I wanted them to focus on getting better. I mean, you know, the spring and summer, but particularly the spring, is a more selfish time. It's probably the most selfish time in football. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's actually a positive thing. That's the time where you're focusing on getting better, right? You're focusing on the crafts you need to get better at and all those sort of things. The summer, you're still doing that, but it starts to dovetail into, all right, we got to become a team here. and all that sort of stuff. So like, yeah, I wanted those guys to focus on getting better and focus on their craft and focus on getting bigger, faster, stronger. So one of those deals. I mean, I think that's kind of the main thing. But then the other thing is I did tell them, hey man, you guys need to be leaders. You need to be as vocal as you can be, still being yourself.
So speaking of getting better, at least once a year when we chat, we talk about your development as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that came up while you were down there is you're the longest tenured coach, which seems crazy to us. It seems like just yesterday that you came. So you wanted your guys to get better. So from a coaching perspective, was there one thing that you wanted to get better from the end of last season to going into this one?
So as a head coach, I found that it's been harder for vast areas of improvement than I thought. And here's the reason why, is because the rules change each and every year I've been a head coach, like significantly, like drastically, right? Like things have drastically changed to where you're not necessarily growing so much as you are adapting to the new era, the new rule, the new whatever. I think that's what makes my job so great is that's not really true for the players and the other coaches, right? Like, yes, it's a little bit different, but I'm the one who has to manage a lot of that stuff. They still get to focus on the football a lot more. So I'm watching them take, pretty significant strides. So it does make me want to get better, and it is something that I strive for, and I'm trying to find constant ways. But you find yourself adapting more than necessarily improving. Where I think I have improved over 6 years is understanding what are the big things, understanding what aren't, right? Like knowing, there are some things that to a player and to an assistant coach can feel like the end of the world. And for me, I think I've done a nice job of knowing when they're right, hey, yeah, this is pretty close to the end of the world. Like this is a major problem or whatever. And then seeing the big picture and knowing when I can tell them, all right, this is how we're going to handle this. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to solve it. This is how we're going to, accept responsibility for this. This is how we're going to be accountable for this. And this is how we're going to move on. And I think that being able to make those decisions, I find myself being more confident in my initial instinct on those decisions much more often than maybe I used to be.
All right. So you were talking about spring being the selfish period.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been just interested in this, and I think the portal has kind of maybe exacerbated the problem. But obviously, once games start, there becomes guys that are happy with how much playing time they get, and there's guys that are upset about it.
No question.
So the coaching is harder, I would imagine, in that time of year. It's harder to get through to those guys.
Well, it's harder for two reasons. It's harder for that type of year because, yes, there are some guys who are unhappy with their roles. But this is the big secret. Like, again, I talk about growth for me. It's not that much different. It's always kind of been that way. The players have started to adjust very quickly to this new model to where it's basically the same as the old model. There's just different pots of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? But it's the same actions.
Okay.
Where it gets hard as a coach is because you're game planning and you're dealing with that stuff, right? Where in the spring, you're not game planning for anybody, really, right? You understand what I'm saying? So like and also in the spring, it's like, yes, people want to play because they want to earn starting roles and they want to do this, but it's not as big a deal as when it's in front of a national television audience and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's a big deal, but I don't think it's as different than it used to be. I really don't. I think that one of the keys is finding players that want to win for the team, right? But I also think that one of the other keys is, and I learned this by reading a lot from Coach Saban, who I think mastered this better than anybody, is showing each individual player what is in it for them on playing within the team and how it makes them a better player, how it makes them more successful, how it makes them more marketable from a greater sense, but also more marketable to NFL scouts and things like that. I think that's where that learning that we've all learned, and that's why he was the greatest, is because he was able to get that a lot earlier than the rest of us.
Right. Personnel. You've made some personnel changes this offseason. Your recruiting staff grew, naming Hunter Sims general manager, and then he has his 2 assistants, Stevie Gutoff and one of our own, Tyler Lamar.
Yep.
Could you talk to us about what led to that decision?
Yeah, I just felt like we were behind a little bit in our overall manpower in the recruiting department. So that's why, we really added Stevie. He'd be the main ad. But just wanted to give everybody a little bit more accountability and a little bit more ownership in the process. I feel like we've done a great job with that, and we have a nice combination of people. Ty, Tyler Lamar, but we call him Ty. He's great with on-campus stuff. He's really learning and doing a good job with evaluation of prospects, but that's really more Stevie's deal, where he's learning on how to be great on campus, which he's doing a nice job too. He's got a great personality. But so those two complement each other very well. And then Hunter, he's got a nice flow to him to where he builds great relationships with the players and the coaches. He can be, very flexible, but at other times he can be really tough and things like that, which you need to be at that position. So really happy with that department right now. I think it's made some huge strides.
We've had the pleasure to interview quite a few players this week. One common refrain we kept hearing was Coach Snodgrass and their appreciation for what he puts them through and prepares them. How do you gauge a good strength coach, great strength coach versus just a regular average strength coach? Like, what makes Snodgrass different?
I think what makes Coach Snodgrass different is he's very tough. He's very disciplined, which a lot of them are. But he has common sense to know when he needs to back off or when he needs to adjust, when there's a personal situation that he needs to go. And he has connections with the kids that he's able to make them see why they're being held accountable in a certain way. The other thing I think makes him great is, he just squatted 800 pounds or whatever.
With a hernia.
Yeah, he's a pretty impressive human that way. But that's not what our team is. Our team, he's building football players. Now, if they can be strong and all that big, he wants to, but ultimately he's building football players and trying to get them in a way that, yes, they are bigger, yes, they are stronger, yes, they are faster, but ultimately they're able to withstand an entire year and they're going to stay healthy. And I think his focus on building football players and that they see the reason why we do everything that we do is, I think, the reason why he's so successful.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of these units.
Okay.
I first want to start off with the wide receiver unit. This unit saw a lot of turnover, but it also saw a total makeover, going from a relatively short unit where barely anyone's over 6 feet tall to a very tall unit where almost no one's under 6 feet tall. And it's a unit you said at the ODU football game is the best wide receiver unit you've had since you've been at Old Dominion. Mm-hmm. What can fans expect from this unit moving forward?
Obviously we're short on experience at the FBS level. We all know that, right? Okay. But what we aren't, we're not short on talent. We certainly have increased catch radius by being bigger. I think we'll be a better blocking unit, although we were a pretty good blocking unit last year. We had some really tough kids, and they were a good blocking unit. We've got to make sure that we're going to be as good ball in hand, which is going to be tough when you're having to replace a guy like Isaiah Page, who's so dynamic that way. I see a lot of guys who play very intelligent. That was Deontay Vines' greatest strength, is how smart he played. And I see some guys who have that same skill and they can see space and all those sort of things. So I'm really excited about this unit. They hold themselves accountable. They are a very confident unit. They have fun playing football. They work hard and they take tough coaching. So, the other thing I think we're going to have is we're going to have more depth there. I don't, obviously every single one of them wants to catch 20 touchdowns and catch 100 passes. I don't know if we're going to see that. I think we're going to have a few more, we're going to be able to play 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 guys. And that's going to make us a better overall offensive unit. It's going to make it harder to defend because we won't have as many tendencies. And then it'll also make us a better special teams unit because those guys won't be as tired. That unit needs to make more of an impact on special teams, and I think they will. I know that's one of Coach Cook's, big messages to them. So I think that's going to be the other area where we're going to see them make an impact where maybe the average fan doesn't quite appreciate what they're doing, but as coaches, we certainly will.
I'll move to running backs, the other skill position that saw some turnover.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you have some talented running backs returning, especially Devin Roche, but also 2 really young backs that I've always been impressed by. One, a walk-on in Troy Marquez,
Mm-hmm.
and then Marky James, who I don't know. He just looks like he could be eventually an every down back.
Yeah. So I'm excited with our running back room. We kind of have like 2 different styles of back, and we have really 2 of them, and then we have a kind of guy who's a little bit of everything. So, with Markai, he's only a redshirt freshman, but he's a very physically developed young man, and he played excellent in the spring. I mean, he had as good a spring as anybody. He understands the offense very well. He understands how he should run the ball in the offense. He's got good hands. He's a good pass protector. All running backs can improve on that, but he is good at it. So excited about him. Really excited about him. The other returner there would be Devin Roche. The thing people don't understand is Devin's our strongest back, even at the size that he's at. So he's a really strong kid for his size. Maybe our best pass protector even for his size. Not for his size, like period, at his size. Very good out of the backfield, quick, good speed. And feel like this could be a year, he has some breakout games. Trayvon kind of matches him a little bit. He's a little bit smaller, but very, very, very fast. One of the fastest guys on our team. And then Bull's a little bit bigger, right? Still fast, can get going. One of the fastest guys on our team, especially long speed, but a little bit bigger guy and some experience. And then you got a guy that you mentioned, Troy, who's kind of in between there, and does some things. And expecting, love Troy to be able to work himself into getting some carries this year. I think his first probably role is going to be finding a way to get on special teams and make an impact there and things like that. But running back in general will be a by committee deal.
All right, offensive line. This is probably your deepest unit on the offense. You also brought in some talented transfers. Could we see any changes here, or should we expect mostly returners on the line?
I mean, it's going to be some good competition there up front. I mean, we got to find a couple other spots, and the returners know they can't just rest on their laurels and that sort of thing. So I'm expecting some good competitions. Obviously, a guy like Ryan Joyce has come in and earned the Heart of the Lion award on offense and has earned a ton of respect by his peers and things like that. So I think that's a huge one. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And there's some other guys that are really going to, I think, step up and give themselves a chance to play. Skylar Grant was our most improved player towards the second half of last year along the offensive line, and then he was our most improved player, period, on the entire team in spring. So I'm really excited that where he's at. A guy like Martin Woodsma, who didn't participate in the spring, has really come back and had a great summer. So would love to see him take that next step. Then you have guys, like Steph and Barlove there. So, there's a couple spots up for grabs, and we got to figure out which 5 are our best 5. That's the real key.
As a coach, how does it feel to have a leader like Barlove who's smart, he does his job, doesn't complain, but also has a good sense of humor?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the offensive line has a great personality among all of them. And it makes practice fun, and it's not just the guys who are quote unquote the top 5 or whatever. You got guys like Theo and you got guys like that who really provide a lot of juice. I think Coach Hutt does a great job of breeding that mentality, and that's probably one of the main things is what he's done. And I'd give him a lot of credit for that. Those guys like to go out and practice, and I think you saw it in the improvement that we made as an offensive line unit last year, and I think you'll see another jump this year.
So last year, Jalen Butler was injured. We didn't see him really at all. Pat Conroy somehow, I don't know how that guy held it together all year. He was like Captain America. He was your guy. Obviously got a lot of production out of that. This year, you appear to have more options there. Can you just talk about that position?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Pat was an absolute warrior last year. I mean, can't say enough about him. I mean, that was unbelievable. I mean, the reality of it is we had one healthy tight end for the last couple of games, and it was awesome. I mean, it was unbelievable. This year we got more options. We really got probably 4 guys that we feel like can go in there and play, and Jalen Butler being chief among those guys and getting him back is going to be huge. I think he can be a real impact guy. He's over 250 pounds now and running really well. And I think he was really coming on during camp 2 years ago, and he got injured there, and it kind of set him back. And so I'm excited to see what he does. Carl, junior college transfer, extremely athletic, mature kid. He's had an interesting life story, and so that's going to be great to get him back. He was very productive at junior college level, very physical, that sort of thing. Dawson really started to show some stuff during spring last year, did some good things for us, and it showed a really good feel for the game and things like that. So liked what we were seeing there. And then Trey Lancaster, when he's gotten some opportunities, he's done pretty well. And so, that's going to be a great deal for us.
All right.
And then I would say Chris Warren, who's a freshman. Chris maybe started off a little rough in last semester, as a lot of mid-semester freshmen do. But man, the strides he's made, I mean, he's got a chance to be pretty special. So, but there's still some things he's got to get better at and things like that. But he's got a chance to be a really good player.
All right, and then obviously there's quarterbacks. I'm not going to ask you the question everyone asked you on at the media days, but Colton and Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this is a position that's near and dear to your heart. If there was one area for both of them to grow and show this season, what would that be for you?
I would just say command of the offense and conviction in their decisions. You know what I mean? They both are good decision makers. They're both incredibly intelligent. They both have all the talent in the world. They just need to know that they are making the right decision at the right time, and then show that in their actions. So, and I've seen that a lot more this summer, just in even the way they walk down the hallway. So that's been a really an area of growth for both of them, no doubt about it.
All right, we'll switch to defense. Obviously, the secondary, it's been kind of a consistent turnover the last few years. I want to actually ask about Coach Repstock and what is it about him and his development and recruiting that allows him to kind of hold the fort there despite all that turnover.
Yeah, it's awesome. People, I didn't lead him to ask that question, by the way, but like that way, but that's an interesting point, because I think that a lot of times it gets looked at as a negative, but I think it needs to be looked at as a positive of how good a freaking football coach that Remington Repstock is. That he's able to, every year, 3 new guys go out there and are all league caliber players, every year. And that's a pretty amazing thing. And I think it's just his commitment to the players, his commitment to the program. He's very, very detail oriented. And he's incredibly knowledgeable, not to mention very intelligent. So, when you combine all those things together, I mean, you've got a great football coach. I mean, he knows scheme, he knows technique, and he gets guys playing well. So, and then he does a good job of evaluating and finding guys that can be successful here. So he's done a great job of that too.
Recently, I was at a mega camp, and I saw something he did that really impressed me. And it showed me how much he loves coaching. During the 40 drills, there was one kid who was probably the least athletic kid at the camp. He pulled the kid aside and tried to help him on his gait and how he gets out off the line.
Mm-hmm.
He worked with this kid for a few minutes. I just was impressed by him taking that time out of a kid that will probably never be a Division I recruit.
Yeah, I mean, that's who he is. You know what I mean? And if you've ever been around him and his family, I mean, you know, that's who Rem is, and I love being around him, and love being around his family, and you know, he cares about these kids, and so it gets tough when, you know, some people he invests in, some people his wife invests in, you know, unfortunately make decisions to move on. She speaks a lot to his character and to her character that they continue to invest the way that they do back into each new group of players. You know, that's not always easy. And so it speaks a lot to who he is as a person, and he does an unbelievable job.
All right, now talking about the unit, we do have one returner in Mario Easterly, who will play significant minutes. We had a chance to talk with him and really impressed by the young man. What can you talk to us about him and the rest of that unit?
Yeah, so I'll talk about Mario here in a second, but what I would say is I disagree with you. I think we actually have 3 guys back. Mario, obviously. Jerome Carter played a lot of football for us as a freshman, both on special teams and on defense, and did start a game, right? And then Davon Isles played a lot of football for us as a freshman. And so that's where, you know, our philosophy of just playing the best player, and those guys happen to be freshmen, helps us out because those guys have played ball before. You also have a guy, Ryan Ramey, who was injured but had played a lot of ball his freshman year. And so you have some guys there who have played, not to mention some of the, you know, yes, we brought in some junior college transfers, but we also brought in a guy like Steiger, who's played at, you know, an A4 school, played a lot of football, maybe not been the guy, wants to come in and have that opportunity. He wins the Heart of Lion trophy on defense, so that's going to be a great opportunity for him. Going back to Mario, incredible development from that kid. You know, really came in playing mainly receiver in high school, had played some DB mainly just by being the better athlete than everybody else, has to learn it, does a great job, has turned into a good tackler, some incredible ball skills, great athlete, maybe our punt returner this year. And, you know, Kit knows really all 3 of the safety positions, knows 2 of them really well, but knows, you know, probably all 3 of them, you know, has really stepped up as a leader and been vocal this summer. So like where we're at there.
All right, we'll just go right into the secondary. Follow that up.
Yeah, you know, I think that, you know, Jerome's
corner. Sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, like I talked about those other guys, you know, we are going to need Jerome and Davon and Steigers, and we're going to need some of those junior college guys to step up and play at safety. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. I think there is going to be a little bit more of a having 6 guys play type mentality and that sort of thing. At corner, you know, I think we're going to have anywhere between 5 and 6 guys playing. Another guy who's made some huge strides is Zion Frank, you know, moving to the corner from safety, and he's done some great things. Happy with, you know, a lot of the development that he's made and those sort of things. Bringing in a guy like, got some length with guys like Botros and Hobson, a little bit longer than we've been in the past. You know, we've got guys, you know, like Langston, who's been here, was injured, but can run and do some things. Chris Boykins has had a very good summer, so, you know, where he's at. And, you know, there's quite a few guys there that are going to be competing for you know, those jobs. JoJo he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he will absolutely strike you, and he has good ball skills, and he can run. So we're going to need, again, probably 6 of those guys to play, and they're all going to need to make impacts on special teams as well.
All right, and then rolling into the linebacking unit, obviously this is a very talented unit. You get Jason back, but still have Koa, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of mostly interested in the guys we don't know, because we all know Jaleel, who has put on a lot of muscle this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
We all know Mario. We all know Jace. We know Koa. We know Seth a little bit. But can you talk to us about some of these other guys that we might be seeing on the field?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, being able to have 4 starters back in a 3 linebacker set's pretty darn good, right? So that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, a guy like Jackson Forrest, who came in mid-year as a freshman and ended up playing pretty darn well over spring ball, that was awesome, and he did a great job. AJ Ashworth is one of the hardest workers on our team. The guys really respect him, and he's a really good worker. You got a guy like Keyshawn Thomas and bigger guy, really flashed in the spring. Obviously, got to continue to know the scheme, but does some great things and can continue to do those sort of things. Justin Klitznick is a true freshman in here, and you see a lot of talent from him. He's from the same high school as Jason, so you see a lot of talent out of that guy. I mean, and then Goodman has been great. Jeremy Mack might be our most consistent football player that we have. He is a really good athlete, and I don't think people appreciate that. He's not only a good athlete because he's a good athlete, but he's a good athlete because he's very spatially aware of what's going on. He can play safety or linebacker, which is impressive, and he's an awesome special teams player for us. So, yeah, I mean, and then we got some new guys like Jaden Shepard, who's got some great length and could help us out there. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think our overall depth is much improved at that position. Obviously, when you have 4 starters back, yeah, it's easy to say that, but when you look at the guys behind them, I think that's where it really shows up.
Yeah, it's impressive what they've been able to put together at the linebacking spot. We'll go to the defensive line. Obviously, you have some big names coming back. Chris Trinidad leading that group. I'm also interested in some of the younger guys here, but 2 of the names we heard throughout the offseason were DeAndre Lynch and Ricardo Williams,
mm-hmm.
and how important they are for this line and how they might be able to actually improve this line this year.
Yeah, I mean, DeAndre is very talented. He's got a lot of length, got a lot of twitch, showed his ability to make some plays last year, and I think this year it's got to take the next step, and I think it will. Ricardo has been incredibly consistent for us and really played well for us last year, so to get him back is great. And then we're going to have to see some of these young guys step up, Ahmad Foster, Chris Forbes, Lorenzo, even some of the freshmen, Day Mentor and Hunter Malecki. Those guys are going to get some chances to play. And then you've got some of these junior college players and, Javin Gibson, we call him Gus, and, Fred. Those guys provide a lot of pass rush for us, and they played really well in the spring and did some things. And then you get a guy, Steady Eddie, like Cole Daniels, who is going to be rock solid for you in there and that sort of thing. So excited about that unit. Again, I think it's going to be a unit. I mean, our strength is going to be in numbers. We need to have 7 to 8 to 9 guys playing and playing well in order for us to be successful.
So when we sat down with Ricardo the other day, he made it a point to tell us something that I found pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He said they weren't just trying to hold guys up, but they're trying to make plays. Common misconception from maybe some of our fans here. Can you talk a little bit about what the goal with this coaching staff is with regards to your D-linemen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is a common misconception. Our guys are not in there just holding gaps and trying to take up blocks. Now, do they get double teamed? Yeah, and when they get double teamed, they can't just like run out of their gap and get pushed out of there. They got to hold in there so that we don't create huge seams. But they're penetrating and they're trying to make plays. So no, that is their goal, and that's what they're going to do. And if you go back and you actually watch the tape, that's what they do. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, but it's funny because all these people are like, well, when I played college football, I 25 sacks and 50 TFLs and all this sort of stuff. And you go back and watch their tape, and maybe that's not what happened. You know what I mean? I think that you get double teamed. You have to play that a certain way in order to play good football, right? If you can penetrate soon enough, then you don't have a double team because there's no angle to double team. But if you don't, and they do a nice job, which they get coached to, well, now you have to play the double team a certain way to where you are holding in there and then fighting off the block later. Yeah, it's just one of those things. We're not just eating blocks. That's not their point.
And credit to Ricardo. I asked him a question about himself, and he answered it for the whole unit.
Oh yeah, good because
Yeah.
he should. I mean, and no, as you guys probably saw, Ricardo's an incredibly intelligent human being who is a great representation of not only Old Dominion but just college football. And so you guys could probably he's a funny kid. Obviously, he's very intelligent and very funny.
He loves his mom too.
Who wouldn't?
And her cooking.
Yeah, hey, a lot of our guys do. Sometimes too much. Yeah, so we've got some good cook. Some of these moms, they're tremendous cooks on this team. So,
All right. So we asked these two questions of every guy we talked to on Monday. They're a little bit more fun and relaxed. So,
okay,
all right. Zombie apocalypse happens. All right.
okay,
For them, I asked them to pick 3 teammates that they're going to go through and fight the horde with and
okay,
create their own civilization, whatever.
okay.
I'm going to change it for you. Give us some coaches at Old Dominion. 3 coaches you would ride with through the horde.
3.
Yeah.
That's tough because I got 4.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah. Coach Snodgrass, Coach Seiler, Coach Huddle, and Coach Vic. I'm going with that. I feel like, it's probably an easy answer because they're like the biggest, strongest ones. But I'm going a little bit off my strengths. I know they can be the biggest, strongest one and that sort of thing. I will say this. I'll throw a different answer out to you. Okay? I will take the Old Dominion coaches' wives in a zombie apocalypse against any coaching staff wives in the country.
Okay, why? You got to give us the insight on this.
Have you met them? I mean, like we have definitely the toughest, both mentally and physically, and maybe the most like in shape, athletic group of wives in the country. I will stand by that pretty firm. I'm pretty firm on that. Like I know a lot of people like, oh, whatever. Like I'm gonna go to bat for a long time on that one. Yeah, so I think our coaches would do well in a zombie apocalypse, but I tend to think that our coaches' wives would be incredibly important in that and in surviving the zombie apocalypse.
Fair enough. All right.
You mind if I take this second one?
Sure.
All right, because you've seen the movie Freaky Friday. You know what that is?
I have no idea what Freaky Friday is. Am I supposed to?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But
all right. Is it the one where they like change bodies?
there you go.
Okay.
You got
All
it.
right. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So Mike asked this question to all the players.
Okay.
So we're gonna do the same thing to you.
Okay.
All right. So you wake up in the morning and you realize that you're in the body of one of your other coaches, and your coach is there. No, a head coach on this campus. Different head coach.
A different head coach on this campus?
Different sport. All right. So who's going to do the better job? Right. If you get caught, why? Yeah. Who gets you caught? And
The other stipulation was you can't tell anyone.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to go with Finney. I'm going to go with Chris Finwood, right? So I have to switch with another head coach, right?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to go with Finney. I'm going to go with Finney probably because I know baseball probably the most out of the other sports. I feel like basketball is one of those. Baseball is one of those sports too, but like I feel like basketball is one of those sports a lot of people think they know, and then it's no bueno. I feel like Finney is such a great person and kind of funny and those sort of things. I think the guys would be like, I was a little bit of a personality change, but like coach is just being a little different, maybe not the same. I think I probably curse more than Finney, so that's probably would get us in trouble. Is people would be like, maybe Coach Finwood has had a stroke, but like I think that would be the biggest thing. I mean, both of us, I think the thing that would allow us to be successful, I won't say which one would be more successful, but I think the thing that would allow us to be most successful is we both have really good assistants. And so we both could like kind of like lean on our assistants and kind of go on the aspect of like, I really want to empower you guys to take control of this thing and go from there. I think, and then we both are good organizers, so we could organize and do some things. So I'm gonna go with Finney. I'm gonna go with Finney. Yeah.
All right.
As long as that stadium's built, because I don't want to have to travel for home games like he had to. I'm not interested in that. So
Yeah, that was a brutal.
yeah.
Season
So as long as I don't have to do that, that'd be good.
All right. So this offseason brought some more changes, rules. Especially the big one is rev share. At the media days, you made sure to credit obviously Wood Selig and President Hemphill. How has it changed things day to day?
Well, I mean, for a long time it was the collective and all that sort of stuff, and an incredible amount of credit goes out to the people who were able to keep that thing going to allow us to be as competitive in that space as we were. The rev sharing, it just makes it a little bit easier, right? I mean, it makes it a little bit easier to get right to it. It makes it a little easier with the rules of being able to negotiate directly with the players. It makes it a little bit easier with people can donate and still and still get credit for donating to the university and all the things that come with that. So I would say that's the main thing. But it takes support from administration. It takes support from everybody, and it's something that we're going to continue. I think the thing that everybody's got to understand is this is not a one-time thing, right? We're not building a stadium here. I mean, this is an each and every year thing. And that's the thing where not only is an each and every year thing, but it's an each and every year thing where, hey, we've done some great things and made some big strides, but we are not at the top of our conference. And we are making strides and we want to be in all those sort of things, but we still have a ways to travel with that. And so it's going to be not only not a one-time thing, but it's going to be a thing where we got to find ways to increase it every year. And that's going to be an important role for me and the other coaches on this thing to manage, but it's also going to be an important role for everybody to find out how to get there.
Any on-the-field rules that are significant enough that, say, fans should be aware of, or that will impact how you manage the game?
It won't impact how I manage the game. It'll impact how you guys view it. Is the whole, if a guy goes down with an injury or non-injury, after the ball's been spotted, it's an automatic timeout. And if you're out of timeouts, then it's a 5-yard penalty. That's going to be interesting, because it's going to be interesting to see, do they not spot the balls quick? Because a lot of teams wouldn't like that. The problem with this whole thing is that, like a lot of things in this world, it's not as easy as people think. Because injuries do happen, and sometimes they're cramps late. Sometimes it's like, oh, I think I'm okay, I'm going to shake this off. Then all of a sudden it's like, wait, I just tried to line up and this thing hurts incredibly bad. And then other times, let's be honest, I mean, you watch the tape, it's not hard to see. There are times when people are being told to go down. I mean, as a coach, I have never done that. And I can say that. But I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've gone out there before and I asked the player, like, dude, what's wrong? And they're like, oh, I was just tired and I needed a break. That's like, God dang it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do that.
Especially if it costs you a timeout.
Well, now, and it will now. And so that's going to be a very interesting.
And maybe giving them a first down.
Or maybe give them a first down.
There are no timeouts,
like there's going to be some very interesting things on that. So that'll be that's probably the biggest rule change.
It also makes me wonder, there might be opportune times to actually get that penalty, because maybe you need to regroup. You don't have the timeouts left, and you just don't go down.
Well, yeah.
Just depending on where.
Run, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's still. I mean, people, like, if you were gonna do that, you're still gonna do it. That's the thing that I've thought about. It's like the people who do that, this isn't that big a change for them, because it's like, if they can get it right before the ball's spotted, then they don't lose a timeout. If it's after the ball's been spotted, they were going to call a timeout anyway. Right? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So like that's the one thing that I think is a little bit funny is like it's not that big a deterrent. My rule that I would have done if I was commissioner for a day is I would go with the rules if you get injured and you have to come out of the game, you are out for the rest of that series. You cannot go back in. Which kid is going to go down and fake an injury now if he can't go back in?
That's when they start subbing just for one play, right?
Yeah, right. But if they can't go back in, right? Like
Right.
they're not going to do that. Like
No, I would say those teams that would do it.
If they sub for one play and that sort of stuff, yeah. But if they're able to anticipate, the problem is they can't anticipate that, right? They can't anticipate that we're going to need to fake an injury on the next play. So that guy had to already be in the game. So that's where it's.
Or if it, in theory, if it was a coach who was signaling to go down, in their head, do I want to lose this guy for
a whole series? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's how I would do it. That's how I think would be the best.
And logically, that does seem to make sense because if you're only out for one play, did you really get that checked out by the training staff?
Exactly. That's the other thing. I would do it, and my reason for having the rule would be the health and safety of the players. That's what I would say. So that's what I would say. And what's funny is people say, well, that's such a dramatic change in the rules. It's so crazy. It's this, it's that, and all those sort of things. No, it's not. Back when, in the 1920s, if you got subbed out of the game, you were out for the rest of that quarter. At any point, you played offense and defense. If you came out, you couldn't play for the rest of that quarter. So it's actually going back to the history of our game, not changing the history of it. So that's how I do.
All right, so this is going to be my last question. You got about a month you said this is the time where you're trying to become a team.
Mm-hmm.
What is the biggest challenge in that process?
Yeah, trusting each other. Right? I mean, you got to trust these people who you don't know as well as you might 15 years ago when you were living with them for 4 years, except for maybe 1 or 2 transfers, right? Instead now, you're having to learn how to trust these people in 3, 4, 5 months. So trust is by far the biggest challenge to that.
Awesome.
Right, without question. So not only trust of the players, but trust of the coaches, right? Do I trust that this coach has my best interest? Do I trust that this coach has the requisite knowledge in order to put me in the right spot to be successful? Do I trust that this player has the team's best interest at heart and not his own? You know what I mean? Do I trust this player knows the scheme as well as I need him to know it? Do I trust that this player is going to be able to come up with a big spot? Because how do I know that when I haven't ever seen it? So trust is the biggest issue.
Awesome. Well, we want to thank you for your time.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it as always.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Go Monarchs.
Go Monarchs.
That's right.